Hey y'all, I am tired. I've been tired all day. It's been raining. The sun that finally came out. I ever tell y'all about the time I was homeless? And now, granted, I've been homeless many times. When I was a child, we were homeless. It wasn't like we experienced homelessness a few times. I remember one time we lived in a shelter. But this particular time that I'm talking about, y'all, it was my first semester when I was in college. Y'all, I used to sleep in my car. My first semester of college was hell. I ain't gonna say it was just hell. I'm gonna say it was hard. It was hard. I forgot I burnt myself, y'all, the other day. It was hard. So the summer before I went to college, y'all, I used to work at the Drillers Stadium in Tulsa. And I worked there saving up money so that I needed $250, y'all, for my dorm deposit. And so I worked at the stadium to make that money. And I made that money, right? And like, I'm gonna say maybe a month to 2 months before I was supposed to go off to school. Yeah, and this is one of my biggest regrets in my life. This is one of those things that I probably will always regret for my whole... This is one of the things I just wish I did different. This is literally one of my biggest regrets. So like 2 months, a month before whatever I'm supposed to leave for school. Mind you, I got the money. I'm holding on to the money. I'm saving the money because I'm like, I need this. I know when I go to this school, I got to pay this. And I just wish I did it differently now. So my biological mother, her mom comes and says she's about to get put... What the hell? Y'all, look at my hand. Why is it wilting up like that? Hold on, y'all, because I don't know what's going on. Baby, we got to get this alcohol. Because, baby, what is that? I knew noticed it was itching, but, baby. Hopefully they don't flag me for saying what the hell, but, I mean, that just scared me. I looked down and seen my hand was wilting up like that. Like, what? Baby. I touched one of my customers' dogs. I'm wondering if the dog, something going on with the dog. Baby. Make sure I put some alcohol on it when I get home. Anyways. So her mom comes and says that she's going to get evicted. And she's trying to save up money. Or not save up money. She's trying to collect money so that she don't get evicted. Now, her mom had a gambling problem. She was always at the boat, as she called it. She had a gambling problem. She smoked. She had a smoking problem. She had a drinking problem. She had every problem. But she really had a gambling problem. And so she's like, yeah, I really need, this, anything you can give me this. I was like, I ain't got it. And my first was, I ain't got it. And she's like, Ashley, I know you got something. Can you just help me out? I'll give it to you. I promise I'll give it to you. And my mom was like, no, she's been saving money, because she's going to go off to school. She's going to need all her money, this and that. And she's like, I promise I'll give it back to you before you leave. I'll give it back to you early, so you'll have it and you can take care of everything and whatnot. And so I'm like, no, I don't trust it. So I'm like, no. So then my mom turned around and she was like, well, actually, she really just please just help out. And if she don't give it to you, I'll give it back to you. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm like, if you could give it to me, if you can give it back to me, why you can't give it to her right now? Like, And so my mom literally coerced me into giving it to her because, oh, that burned. Everything in me said no. Everything in me just was like, nah. But my mom was like, please, please do it for me, please. You know, I don't want my mom to be homeless. So long story short, I gave her the money. Months go by. A month go by. Then another month go by. And I'm like, man, you know, it's getting close to time for me to go back to school because I think the semester started like sometime like mid-August or something like that. I'm like, you know, I need my money. So I started calling her, y'all. She wouldn't answer the phone for me. I'm like, why she ain't taking my calls, you know? So I had my sister call her. I said, call her and see if she take your call. She called her. She picked up on the first ring. And it was me, though. And I said, hey, I was just calling to see if you had my $250. You know, I need that, you know, for my dorm. I'm getting ready to leave in a couple weeks. And it might not even been a couple weeks at this point. It might have been like next week. I'm getting ready to leave next week. Like, I really need that. And she said to me, you gonna get your funky ass $250. I'm gonna give it to you. Y'all know how people do. Y'all know how people do, right? And so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna keep cool because I know how to keep cool. You know, I'm gonna keep cool. But in my mind, I'm like, I need to prepare just in case this don't work out. And so, you know, mentally, I'm preparing myself for her to not give me this money back already, right? So it come, y'all, the day that I'm supposed to leave for school. And she ain't been answering, she ain't been answering. So I'm telling my mom, like, you know, I can go down there and see because I already knew I was getting a refund check, y'all, because of all the scholarships and stuff I had. My school was completely paid for with refunds without me having to take out loans or anything. My school would have been completely paid for all 4 years without me having to take out loans or anything. I need y'all to understand. All I had to do was secure my $250. The only thing I had to pay was my deposit for my dorm. That was it. That was it. Once I got there, everything else would have been a breeze. So, you know, I'm calling, she ain't answer, whatever. Then she come pulling up in the driveway with my uncle. Well, he ain't my uncle. He ain't nothing to me. With my mother's brother. Because they thought I was already gone. They come pulling up in the driveway. I don't remember if I had my car. No, my car was there. My car was there. And I come out the door and she was like, oh, I thought you were already left. You still here? And like trying to be like, you know, and I was like, hey, do you have the money? Like, I gotta leave. Like, I'm supposed to be moving in right now. And you know, my friends, I got my friends, they gonna help me move my stuff in. You know, I just need the $250 so I can pay for the dorm. And this woman looked me square in my face and told me she ain't had the money, y'all. And I said, what? This is important. This is something that's important. You don't have the 250. And mind y'all, she made a lot of money. She used to make a lot of money, but she had a gambling problem. And so I'm going back and forth with her, and my mom's brother chimes in and he says, don't talk to my mama like that. I don't know what you so worried about trying to get to college for. You ain't never gonna be nothing. You gonna end up right here in the hood just like the rest of us. You gonna end up right back here. So you might as well not even waste your time going to college anyways. I looked at him, y'all. I said, you know what? You might believe that. I said, but let this be the last time. This will be the last time you ever see my face. This will be the last time you ever lay eyes on me. And I looked at my mom's mother and I said, and you are dead to me. You can never speak to me another day in your life. Never. I said $250. All it cost me was $250 for you to show me who you were. And my mom was standing right there, and she could tell, like, you know, how hurt and upset I was, y'all. So I packed up a little bit of stuff. I left a majority of my stuff there because I ain't have nowhere to move in, but I knew I was going to school. Whether or not I had a dorm, I was going to school, and I would just figure it out along the way. That's what I've been doing my whole life anyway, just figuring it out along the way. And so, y'all, I went to school with a bottle of water and a pack of crackers. That's it. Every night, after everybody else would go into their dorms and stuff, I'd find a parking spot, and I put my, what do you call those? The reflector, I can't think of what it's called right now, y'all. I would put it in the window, in the front window. I would sleep in the back seat. I had a 92 Saturn. Y'all. And I would climb in the back seat. I ain't had no cell phone. I had nothing. I just had that water. I had those crackers. And every day, I would eat one cracker. And I was like, you know, I'm going to get a job. It's going to work out. And I would just lay in the back seat and cry. And until I fell asleep. Luckily, security never seen me, because I was not supposed to be sleeping in my car. But I knew to be still, and so I would just lay down, get as low as I could, and just lay down and not move, where, you know, they wouldn't see me. And when I put the thing in the front, you know, they automatically probably assume there's nobody in there. And so I would wake up in the morning, y'all, before everybody else, because culinary students will get up early because they have to be there early because they got to do breakfast and all that stuff. So I would get up early before even the culinary students, which I think they would have to be there at like 6 o'clock or something like that. I would get up before even them, y'all. And I would go over to the science hall, because the science hall was always open early. I don't know why. I still ain't really figured that out. But out of all the buildings, that building would always be open. And I could use the bathroom in there, and there would be nobody in there. And so I would go in there, and I would brush my teeth, and I would wash up every morning. Throughout the day, I would go to my classes, y'all, starving. I met friends eventually along the way, but I was too ashamed to even tell them what I was going through, y'all. I was too ashamed to ask for help. And when I finally got to the point where I couldn't take it no more, and I finally broke down and I told people, it wasn't people that was on campus. It was some of my other friends, you know, that were back home, and I told them, you know, because I used to make money, y'all, giving people rides back and forth to Tulsa. And so, like, people be like, oh, you know, they don't have no car, but I have a car. And so I would be like, yeah, you know, I'll take you home, you know, just put some gas in my car, you know, give me $5. And they'd be like, that's it? And I'd be like, yeah, that's it, you know. And that's how I would make money going back and forth or whatever, right? And I would be able to give me a little bit of something. I would always be able to give me a little bit of something. And so, dollar menu, when I say that dollar menu was my friend, that dollar menu was my saving grace, y'all. I remember one time I pulled up to Arby's and I ordered some stuff off the dollar menu, and I guess I was just so hungry, I didn't realize, like, girl, you only got $5. And I went over the $5, and she was like, it's $5.40 something. And I was like, I ain't even got the 40-something cents. And she probably would have gave it to me if I was like, hey, I only got 5. Or I would have said, hey, can you take this off or whatever? Yeah, I just drove off. I was like, forget it. And I just drove off. I was too ashamed. I was a very prideful person. That was one of those seasons that really like broke me down and humbled me in ways that's an experience I feel like I did need. I feel like it was necessary in my life and making me who I am today. But it was very humbling. And so I finally came around and I told one of the girls, I just confided, and I was like, yeah, I've been sleeping in my car and all this other stuff. And she was like, well, I never sleep in my dorm, because she was dating this guy. She's like, I'm always in his dorm, or he's always in my dorm, or something. There was something, I can't remember which way it went. And she was like, you can have either it was her dorm or it was his dorm. I want to say it was his dorm. She was like, you can just sleep in his dorm, right, y'all? And so I'm like, oh, okay. I'm really thinking like she looking out for me. Like I'm really appreciative to it, right, y'all? So it was his dorm because he took me there. He was like, let me in and stuff. So now that I think about it, and when he took me, and I was like, I really appreciate this, and I'm really talking to him and stuff. I'm like, I really appreciate this. You don't know how much I appreciate this. This means that I can actually stay in school. I don't have to drop out this semester, because right now I'm just like, I ain't got no food, I ain't got no money, I ain't got no job, I ain't got nothing, like nothing. And so, but then he tried to come on to me, y'all. And so then I was uncomfortable, and I was like, I can't stay here, because he has a key to this dorm and he will be able to come in and out whenever he wants. And what if he tries to come in here while I'm sleeping or something? And I just felt so uneasy, y'all, where I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna have to tuck my tail and go back to Tulsa. I can't take it anymore, y'all. I was so distraught. I was so distraught. So I did. I got my refund money, though. I still got my refund money, but I end up having to go back. I went back, and I think they called me like maybe a week or two later, and they were like, hey, your check is here. You haven't came to get your check. We need to make sure you come get your money. And And I was like, why couldn't this have come sooner? Why couldn't this money have come sooner? And it was like maybe like $3,000, like a $3,000 or $4,000 refund. Y'all, I had scholarships on scholarships on scholarships on scholarships. Like when I say my school would have been paid for, my schooling would have been completely paid for. Full 4 years. No loans, no nothing. And I had been working on this since I was in the 4th grade, y'all. This is something I was working on since I was in the 4th grade. I was working on obtaining these scholarships, obtaining the grants, obtaining all this stuff since I was in the 4th grade. So understand how devastated I was when I had to tuck my tail and go home. Like, well, I didn't even go home. I went and I stayed with my aunt, my mom's younger sister. And I stayed with her until the fall semester was over and I could re-enroll. I didn't know how to drop classes. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff, y'all, because I was the first person in my family to go to school. So I didn't know nothing. I didn't know, y'all. And so I just let the classes, I just basically flunked out of the classes. But this time I said, you know what, I'm going to hold on to this money. And I did. I held on to that money. And winter semester came and I enrolled myself in school. First thing I did, I enrolled myself in school. I re-enrolled. I paid my deposit. That was the first thing I did, that deposit. And I even remember going to the bursar and I said, I'm going to get a refund are you able to just charge the $250, to my account, and take it from the refund, and y'all can take it, when my refund check comes, because I'm going to get a really big refund. And she was like, no, it don't work like that. You have to pay the $250 out of your pocket up front. And so I was just like, man. But me dropping out that first semester, y'all, it really dropped my GPA. Like, my GPA went all the way down to like 0. Like, it completely just, And so then I end up getting on academic probation and all of that, and they were like threatening to take my my scholarships because of it. And so I didn't know that you could do academic forgiveness. I didn't know about none of that stuff. I found out all of that my 3rd semester in college is when I found out about that stuff. And I was like, why didn't I know about this before? Because then I could have did that. And if I had done that, just a lot of different stuff, a lot of different things that I didn't know. If I'd known, it could have really changed my situation. And so I went back to school spring semester, but now I'm trying to play catch up. I'm trying to fix all the things, that I messed up. And they're like, hey, look, because you lost this scholarship, now you're going to owe this amount. And I'm like, I don't have it, like, what am I going to do? And then out of nowhere, somehow I end up getting a grant where they covered it. I still don't know how. And I was happy. And that's what allowed me to enroll in my 3rd semester. But, y'all, it was, when I tell y'all, I have experienced a lot of life. I'm trying to block the sun, y'all, so it don't be all in y'all face, all in my face and y'all face. But I have experienced a lot of life. And so my perspective on things is always going to be different from most people, from the average person, just because of the things that I have experienced in life. I have experienced being taken advantage of. I have experienced people trying to take advantage of me. And, like, imagine someone, I'm relatable because I have seen so much. There you go. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to just leave it there. But when I tell y'all, I used to climb in that back seat of that Saturn, and I would just read and cry. And I remember I would eat the cracker. I'm like, I gotta save the crackers. Like, I can't eat all of them. And I would be so hungry. I'll fill my water bottle up before I would get in the car. Like, I would go to, because I didn't have, because I didn't have my dorm, I didn't have room and board. So I didn't have food or nothing like that. Like, I literally just had to make some bucks some kind of way. Or sometimes people would be like, hey, I'm gonna buy you lunch and stuff like that. Sometimes people would. And I really did appreciate that when people would do that stuff for me. Because I knew that they didn't have to. Especially with my own family, y'all. My own family wanted me to fail. My own family, literally. Like, you might as well say she plotted for me to fail. But that's the thing, too, when I talk about he always gonna use somebody close to you. She knew my love for her because she raised me. Y'all gotta remember, there was a point in time when I was taken from my mom, and there was a period when I was in my grandmother's custody. And remember, I told y'all, she raised me as though my mom and her siblings were my sibling. So she knew my love for her just off the fact that when my adopted mom passed, she immediately got custody of me. Like, she stepped up, and I knew she didn't have to do that. I knew she didn't have to take me in. I knew she didn't have, and she did. And she loved me like I was her own. So she knew my love for her just off of that. And I feel like she took advantage of that situation. And it's unfortunate because I have never spoken to her a day again in my life. And one thing about me, when I say something, I'm going to stand on it. And I think people are starting to really figure that out about me now. And maybe some people have figured it out a long time ago. But when I say something, I say it, I mean it. I don't say anything lightly. That's why when people say stuff to me, I take it the way that I do, because what I say, I mean. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. My word is bond, will always be bond. And so when my niece passed away and we went back home, Carrie was maybe a few months. Yeah, Carrie was not even a year yet. And me and her dad and her, we went back for my niece's funeral. And my mom's mom was there. And she kept trying to speak to me. And she didn't exist to me, y'all. She just did not exist in my world. Like, my siblings, they were like, you hear her talking to you? I'm like, hear who? Who? She can't be talking to me because she don't exist in my world. She don't. And I guess because my oldest sibling told her that we were coming, she probably thought she was going to get to meet my daughter. And I made sure she did not. And so when people ask me, like, oh, you don't take her around your side of them, they will not taint my daughter the way they did me. They will not get a chance to hurt her the way that they've hurt me. They won't get a chance to. When Carrie was first born, I tried to forgive my mom for certain things she done and stuff, and it just did not go well. It ended up being really bad, to the point where now, like I told y'all in a previous video, I just love her from a distance. I ain't got no beef with you, ain't no quarrel, ain't no nothing, but you gotta stay over there, because you hurt me my whole life. You put men before us my whole life. And you tried to do that to my daughter. Luckily, Carrie was not old enough to even understand or know what was going on. But for me, I was like, no. She might not have protected us when we were coming up, but I take my job as a mother very seriously. So I know that my job is to protect Carrie. And I take that very, very seriously. So I'm going to protect her from any and everything. Anything I can do, I will do. What is in my power to do, I will do. And what's in my power to do is to make sure there is no one around her giving her empty promises. No one around her trying to steal from her. Trying to manipulate her. Trying to tear her down. Or anything of that fashion, because envy and jealousy is real. You get what I mean? So, yeah, no. I'm going to protect her. I protect Carrie the way that I feel like my mother should have protected us. Because I don't feel like she did. Her or my dad. Not my stepdad, but my biological father. I don't feel like she did. So, no. Y'all can't be around why would I want my child around crackheads, drug addicts, alcoholics? That was the reason why my ex couldn't be around her, because he couldn't get his drinking problem together. And I told him, I said, hey, if you can't get that together, you can't be around her. And I love you dearly with everything in me. And I know that you love her. But if you can't get that together, you can't be around her, because she will not be exposed to all of this screaming and yelling, this chaos. She will not be around. Okay, she will not. No, y'all are not going to damage my child the way that I was damaged. And I stand 10 toes on that. I'm going to protect mine every time. I'm going to put her before me every single time. I will protect that little girl with my life. If it ever came down to it. I'm always going to protect her. And so yeah, no, she thought she was going to, and I'm like, no, she is really dead to me. And, you know, people, my siblings in particular, have always tried to make me feel bad about my decision and all that. I said, no. She showed me who she was for $250. Because when I looked at her, I said, I'm going to be homeless. I said, I'm not going to have nowhere to stay. Do y'all know she looked at me and said, I don't give a fuck? That was her response. I will never forget that. I was like, you don't give a fuck? What? What do you mean? You cared when you wanted the $250, and when I started going, that's when then her son chimed in, was like, don't be talking to my mama like that, you disrespectful little girl, and all of that. And that's when all that happened. And I was just like, this woman just told me she don't care if I'm homeless. She don't care if I don't have anywhere to stay. I can't forgive that. I can't forgive that. I'm sorry. Something could have happened to me when I was sleeping in my car. I think about that all the time. God was always watching over me. Something could have happened to me. Anything could have happened to me. I will never forget that. Ever. But anyways, y'all, that's that. I'm getting ready to wrap up. Carrie should be coming out shortly. So I will see y'all in another one next week. Bye.